Tell me, do you wish your life was sweeter? Tell me, are you losing hope? Friend, you need to stop and read First Peter when you're at the end of your rope. Life's not always sun and flowers. Sometimes it can rain for hours. Peter says despite the showers, we can do more than mope. Let's find our hope. Phil here, and we are sojourning in First Peter.
Ha! I see what you did there. That was one of our new words from last time.
We're visiting First Peter on our journey.
And I am writing in my sojournal.
I don't think that's a thing.
Sure it is. It's a journal you keep while you are sojourning. A sojournal.
I still don't think that's a thing. But we need to move on. Remember back in Ephesians, Paul talked about authority, about who had power in an ancient household and how they should use that power.
Oh, I remember. The father of the household had the most power. The servants had the least. Everyone else was in the middle somewhere.
Where were turtles again?
Paul doesn't mention turtles directly. Now, Peter is going to talk about power, about authority. But instead of power in a household, Peter talks about power and authority in a whole society, particularly the Roman Empire.
Because that's where they lived, right?
Right. All the early Christians lived in the Roman Empire. So, let's read the Bible together. Who can read 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 13 through 15?
Sam's turn!
My turn. Let's see here. Obey the people who have authority in this world. Do this for the Lord. Obey the king, who is the highest authority. And obey the leaders who are sent by the king. They are sent to punish those who do wrong and to praise those who do right. So when you do good, you stop foolish people from saying stupid things about you. This is what God wants.
He said stupid.
Yes, he did.
I'm not supposed to say stupid.
Well, technically, Peter didn't say stupid because that's an English word and Peter only spoke Greek and Aramaic. Other versions of the Bible say ignorant, which means to know nothing or to have no knowledge. But let's jump in. Obey the people who have authority in this world. What Peter is really saying is, follow the laws. In general, laws are good and help people get along. So follow them.
Do this for the Lord. How do we follow the laws for God?
Peter says the king has the most authority, and then the leaders sent by the king. He says those leaders are sent to punish those who do wrong and to praise those who do right. When you do good, you stop foolish people from saying untrue things about you. This is what God wants.
What does God want?
He wants us to follow the laws.
Yeah, but why?
Remember, we're in a section where Peter is talking about living good lives and about our lives being a witness to people around us.
I remember this. Something about the bank robbers.
That would be an example of not following the law.
So if we don't obey the law, then people can say, wow, following Jesus doesn't help you live a good life.
Right, and that's why Peter says, obey the king and his leaders. This is what God wants. If we live good lives, we are a witness to God's power and God's goodness.
Okay. But what if the law isn't good?
Right. What if the king says, hey, everybody, you should rob banks and be mean? It's the law. Then what do you do?
Very good question. That's why I said, in general, laws are good and help people get along. There can be bad laws. Do you remember who wrote Ephesians?
Paul. Paul wrote Ephesians.
And where was Paul when he wrote Ephesians?
He was in prison. Paul was in prison.
Why do people go to prison?
For breaking laws, for disobeying the king or the governors.
Right. Paul was in prison because some leaders who had authority over him told him to stop talking about Jesus. And Paul said, no, I won't stop.
Paul was a lawbreaker. Didn't he know Peter said to obey the law?
Guess who also went to prison once or twice?
Not Peter.
Peter also went to prison because he wouldn't stop talking about Jesus. In fact, most of the disciples did.
Well, then, what's the point of the obey the law if then it's don't obey the law?
No one had more authority than the king, except God. God's authority is higher than any king or president or governor. So if the king said, "Don't do this," but God said, "Do this," the disciples did what God said, even if it got them in trouble with the king. Emily, can you read verses 20 and 21?
Sure thing. If you are punished for doing wrong, there is no reason to praise you for bearing punishment. But if you suffer for doing good and you are patient, then that pleases God. That is what you are called to do. Christ suffered for you. He gave you an example to follow, so you should do as he did.
Here is what Peter is saying to the Christians in the Roman Empire. If the law is right, do what is right. If the law is wrong, do what is right. If doing what is right gets you in trouble, accept the punishment. Remember, that's what Jesus did.
That's true. Jesus died for doing what was right.
And when we follow Jesus, God gives us strength to do what's right, even when it hurts. See you next time.